In this video, I want to explain a simple approach for making the priming of seasonal water systems much easier. So by seasonal systems, I mean something that might be in a cottage or a camp that you have to drain in the winter to stop from freezing. So here we have a typical jet pump, and its intake line is drawing from a lake, let's say. So that's a foot valve. So the foot valve only allows water to be sucked in. Water cannot come back out again. So it's a special kind of one-way valve. And here we have the pump and a priming plug on top. So the typical approach is to remove the plug and to pour a whole bunch of water down a relatively small hole to fill the pump casing and to fill this pipe all the way down, because a water pump cannot pump air. If there's any air in the line at all, then, or in the pump casing, then your pump's going to be running, but you're not going to be moving any water. And the problem with priming in the usual way, by feeding water down here, is that it's very easy for air to build up in these lines and to stop the water from going all the way down. So it can be extremely frustrating to prime a seasonal water pump in the usual way. And that's why I came up with this alternative. Imagine this pipe here is quite long. It could be 50 or 100 feet long in a normal water system situation. But near the foot valve, perhaps 2, 3, 5 feet away, you can splice in some fittings. There's nothing unusual about these fittings. This is just a T-fitting. There's some barbed fittings that fit inside the polyethylene pipe here with clamps. It's the usual way of doing intake water lines like this. And then we have an elbow and a valve. Now what this allows us to do is, instead of putting water in from the top into the pump, we're now drawing water from the water source itself and forcing it, pushing it up the system. So we're not hauling buckets of water from the lake. That's one advantage. And because we're not trickling water down these pipes and hoping that it gets all the way down without some sort of an airlock, then we have a much simpler time of this job. So this is a hand pump. You can use any kind of hand pump. This is a marine bilge pump. Draws water from the lake and forces it into the intake line from the bottom end up, all the way through. And when you hook this up, you just keep on pumping. After you've taken out the plug on the top, you keep on pumping until water starts coming out here. And then you know that the intake line is filled. And by the time this has happened to, just by default, this area of the pipe here also gets filled with water. So when everything's filled with water and water is coming out the top of the pump, you replace the plug. Now, before you disconnect this, start up your pump. See if it draws water. See if it builds up the required pressure to shut off in the pressure tank. And if it does, then you can disconnect your supply hose here after shutting off this valve. And normally during the course of the year, this whole arrangement is going to remain on your intake line. This will come off and you'll be good to go. Now, if you were mistaken and there was some air in the line here somewhere and the pump started, well, that air is going to work through. And as soon as the air hits the pumping part of the pump, it's going to stop pumping. And that's why you'd want to leave this connected, because if you start up the pump and you find that it works for a while and then it stops, well, just keep it running and go down, or have someone go down to the lake and pump this by hand. Just give it a little boost while the electric pump is running. That will push the air pocket through the system into the pressure tank, and your intake line will be completely filled with water and it will start running really well, in which case you can close this valve and disconnect this pipe here and coil it up and put the hand pump away for another season. Now, just so you can see what this looks like, here's an installation that I put into a water system near a lake, and it shows those fittings. So you can get these at any hardware store. We have a fitting that goes from the polyethylene pipe to this side, which is some male threads, steel pipe, galvanized steel, and these male threads on this fitting plug into this T here, and the same here. So we're making a transition from black poly pipe to the T, and then this side of the T has an elbow and a valve, and then this fitting here, which connects to the hose from the hand pump, and there'll be a screw clamp on there to hold it on temporarily while you're doing your hand pumping. And then when you're all done, you shut this valve off, undo the clamp, take the hand pump assembly off, and you're good to go. In the situation where I installed this system, priming the water system in the spring could take 2, 3, 4 hours of frustrating work. And now it's about 10 minutes by the time you get the hand pump on there. So really good system, really fast, and it works every time.